Hey, welcome to Digital Current. I'm your host Sridhar Sunkara. I have a great show today. We're talking about agtech, blockchain, and much more with the CEO of the SEAM. Welcome, Mark. I appreciate you coming onto this show. So just to get started, just can you tell us about what SEAM is and how you got into SEAM, into agtech, and your journey to
Sure.
becoming a CEO of the SEAM?
Sure. So the SEAM is a Memphis-based company that was started in the year 2000. So if you remember around that time, the internet was just getting interesting.
Yep.
And agribusinesses came together and wanted to create a neutral company that would allow the buying and selling of cotton over the internet.
Yeah.
And so that's how the SEAM came about. And since then, we've expanded beyond cotton trading, which we have since traded 30 plus million bales on the platform to date, in excess of $9 billion in commodity clearing and settlements. We've branched out into other commodities such as peanuts and soybeans.
That's a lot of trading.
That's a substantial amount of trading, and a lot of people don't realize that a lot of that happens right here in Memphis.
Yeah. So my next thing is, why did you choose Memphis?
Memphis has deep roots in agriculture, but I grew up in Memphis. Memphis is home for me. Born and raised here, and went to grade school, elementary school in Walls, Mississippi. And the 40-minute commute by bus to Walls, Mississippi, you'd be able to appreciate the agriculture fields on the left and the right, cotton fields. And so I grew up around it. Went to school with crop dusters flying overhead while you're in math class.
That's awesome.
And just had a respect for it. But you look at Memphis, and Memphis, cotton is king in Memphis. And people think about years and years ago when cotton was king and Cotton Carnival and all that here.
Yes.
But it's still alive and well in the city. The Memphis Cotton Exchange, which is on Front Street, was formed in the 1800s and is now a museum, the Cotton Museum.
Yeah, I've seen the museum. It's awesome.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's incredible. But the history of Memphis and cotton and agriculture is stronger than ever. And a lot of people don't realize the companies whose headquarters are still here in Memphis.
Wow,
for cotton.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I've been here for like 25 years already.
Yeah.
So there's always something to learn in Memphis.
Absolutely.
There's always,
Absolutely. Agriculture, the logistics, just all of this intersection of technology combined with that makes it an exciting time to be in Memphis.
Exactly, yeah. So I wanted to jump and talk a little bit more into your digital, all right? So how is the digital transformation is helping your company to grow or to expand?
Yeah. So the SEAM wouldn't exist without technology advancement. The technology availability of the internet allowed us to extend trading throughout the world. And so a cotton farmer from Tennessee can have his offer available that's being bid on from someone in Asia. And so the internet allows us to do that, but it also, innovation improves innovation. These are layers of technologies that allow you to do more. We have the mobile internet today, and now our trading companies they've got the internet in their pocket.
Yes.
They're able to stay connected to the markets and to do commerce wherever they are on the go. And so technology has certainly brought us to where we are today. There's some things that are going on now in the space with traceability and transparency. The consumer is very interested in the origin of their products.
Yes, everybody is now.
Very much. They want to know where their goods came from and the history, the provenance of the goods. And that's something that technology can help solve as a tool.
Yeah.
And technologies such as blockchain are allowing us to do that.
So coming to blockchain, I know like it's a huge buzz in blockchain, right? There's several people talk about blockchain, but you only have seen few use cases, right? So tell me some of the myths about blockchain. Is it for everybody, for everything? A little bit about blockchain, and then how are you using blockchain? I think it makes sense in your industry what you're trying to do, but tell how you are utilizing blockchain for the scene.
Sure. So blockchain certainly has been the buzzword of the past 2-3 years, and we've done a lot of work ourselves, which we'll talk about, but it's not a solution for every problem.
Yeah.
We see it as another tool for our tool belt that allows us to do some things that we haven't done before. So, for example, in the traceability transparency side, the cotton supply chain is extremely complex, just like the food initiatives are, food safety. The supply chains are very complex with different systems throughout the way, and it makes it very challenging to be able to do things like give some assurance of the origin of this product to this brand or this retailer. Levi's, this is where your cotton came from, and this is the journey it took to get there. Or from the food side, we represent a lot of the peanut industry, and so therefore food safety is critical. You want to be able to provide digital assurance of transaction activity or the movement of the goods, and that blockchain technology allows us to do that in those cases.
Okay, so can you just give us a little bit of how your blockchain works?
Mm-hmm. So we have recently been selected by the National Cotton Council, who represents all the various segments of the cotton industry, from ginning to producing to warehousing to merchandising, to provide a platform for sustainability, agriculture sustainability. And the mission is to provide assurance to those interested parties, whether that be the Levi's, Brooks Brothers, H&M, whoever that might be from the global space, assurance of the practices that the farmer took for sustainable agriculture production. And so what we're using blockchain for initially in this particular instance with the National Cotton Council is to record irrefutable facts about the farmer's enrollment in the initiative, about the farmers, the practices that they use to produce their crop, certain answers to questions, and to make that independently verifiable to the other parties. You know, this farmer enrolled on this day, and these farmers did these practices on their farms to produce sustainable cotton. That's the initial use case that we are working with. Now the next phase of that gets a lot more interesting, and I think it's something that we were more excited about 2 years ago. And it's a technology or a concept called asset tokenization.
Yep.
Where you have an asset, in this case a bale of cotton.
Yes.
And we want to digitize the ownership or the representation of this so that we can provide the provenance, the journey that cotton took along the supply chain with irrefutability. And so I think the combination of the technologies that are available, not just blockchain, but the other series of technologies, are going to allow us to provide that digital crumb trail to trace that origin of the cotton and to provide assurance to those that are interested at the supply chain end.
So within this blockchain, right, so people wanted to really know more about blockchain. So who would be the parties within the blockchain? So are you doing like a private blockchain or a public blockchain? Is it like, what is the version that you guys are doing?
Yeah, so we initially were working with a private blockchain initiative with Hyperledger.
Okay.
And we are also in the early R&D phase looking at other technologies like Corda.
Okay.
In fact, we have licensed certified Corda architects on staff. But we're more recently fascinated with the open multi-purpose blockchain initiatives that Ethereum provides.
Yep.
So our look at that is when the open source development community embraces something, we should pay attention. It's more about going to the open internet versus the AOL days with American Online.
Yes.
So instead of a curated internet, the world chose an open, borderless, neutral internet. The same thing is going to play out here, and we see it. So we are embracing more heavily the Ethereum ecosystem because of its open neutrality.
So I know like what you're talking about, the licensed and the open. So when you talk about the open source technologies, so talk a little bit about where you started, right? You are a tech guy too, right? So
right.
And how you have seen your journey to getting here as a person. How do you see the technologies growing towards the open technologies? Was probably when you and I started, it's not that open.
Yeah.
So can you tell a little bit about you and your journey in the technology?
Absolutely. So I started my professional career in the banking industry. So I was a software architect for banks, credit unions that provided software to customers that needed banking services. And I did that for a number of years, working as an architect. So I was fascinated with developing and architecting. And then when the web came along, was even more fascinated, and I knew I wanted to be in that field. So taking that banking experience, that model for finance, and moving it into agriculture just seemed like a natural harmony. So when the scene came about, .com, .com days, and Memphis and agriculture and cotton, it was just a perfect calling, I guess, to take the history of what I've done with the financial side and move it into agriculture. So my days early at the seam were in managing the software architecture for all the platforms that are in use today. As we talked about, the tens of millions of bales that we've traded, tens of millions of tons of peanuts that we process through the platform, and soon soybeans. And really, I'm a coder. They say the first step towards recovery is admitting a problem. I'm a geek. I'm a technology geek. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I think that allowed me to do a lot of interesting things, and then moving into leadership roles, and then fortunately coming back now in this technology world as a technologist, running the seam and carrying it to the next level.
Okay. So talk a little bit about what is the future for seam. Are you going to stay in a certain focused areas, or are you going to broaden? Because you're building a new platforms with blockchain, so you're going to have a lot more knowledge in the blockchain and taking some use cases. Can you talk about what seems future plan, but also some of the use cases you have with any of your clients or anything?
Yeah. So the seam, we don't want to be all things to all people, because we can't do all things well.
Yeah.
So our focus is agriculture. We want to focus on agriculture 100%. We've fortunately have received a lot of press about what we're doing in blockchain and the space with technology. So we have companies that come to us from the metals industry or the energy industry and ask for us to see if we can do projects for them. We don't know those spaces. And so we're a small team, and I think we have to focus on what we know and on where our partners open the doors for us to learn more about their industry. So agriculture is absolutely what we're focusing on 100%. The space is huge, and the opportunities are now. So I think that's really going to be our focus, and expanding beyond what we've been known for, cotton, peanuts, and moving into now soybeans with a new partnership and arrangement with the United Soybean Board, and then other commodities. We want to take what has proven to work in the digitization on these projects like the National Cotton Council and carry those forward with sustainability initiatives in agriculture and other opportunities with trading.
So the two more questions I want to at least ask, just not more than that. Maybe one would be like, what would you tell companies that are now like still figuring out if digital transformation is right for them, or is digitization is really for them, or still following the traditional processes? What would you tell those companies how this technology is going to impact them in the future?
Yeah, I think in order to participate in the global economy going forward, the days of doing business on a paper notebook are over. And agriculture is one of those industries that has been slow to adopt digitization. Very paper-based, very paper-laden business. But because of the changing consumer today, the need to know more, the traceability, the transparency, the sustainability verification, it's going to require digital transformation, and you don't want to be left behind in that respect. It's going to be not a nice to have, but a must have in order to participate in the global economy for these companies to start buying your products. For example, Walmart, they came out just over a year ago, and they're now asking their suppliers of leafy greens that they must participate on a distributed ledger or technologies very similar, or they're not going to buy from them. Okay. Now, when that happens, that gets everyone's attention. So that industry and other industries have come on to say, well, we have to have the same thing. And so it's driving the market. It's driving the need for more digital transformation. And I think the tools are there for us now that we didn't have to do it the right way, to where all this is coming together at the right time.
Okay, another question about technologies itself, right? So the technologies when we are growing up is not that many, right? So we learn few and we can come out and work on the same platform, same tech space for a long time. But today things are changing faster, right? With not only open source technologies, but new platforms, there are new different methodologies they're coming. What do you tell your staff, right, your programmers, and how they need to be adopting to the new methodologies or new technologies quickly, because you want to have the competition, right? So the competition is heavy and it's faster, and somebody from a garage can quickly, they have all the tools today that you and I have, that they can go and build the same platform quickly.
That's right. You're exactly right. You're touching on something that's very interesting. The barriers to entry are so low now for technologists. You don't have to go and buy millions of dollars worth of equipment to have your own data center. You can now rent space on Amazon or Microsoft Azure. When we created the Seam in 2000, we had our own data center. It was just huge, and it was requiring all this energy and all this power with staff and everything. And so now you can try things, you can experiment, and that's where it's fun, but it's also a risk because you have so many in the space that what do you focus on? You know, you mentioned open source. We're firm believers in open source software architecture, the collaborative approach to software architecture. But you also have to make sure your skills are honed, that you're not left behind. The Seam, when it was created again in the early 2000s, had state-of-the-art web-based, cloud-based system that's now being completely rewritten using these newer technologies. And you have to stay current, even in a space where we're seen as innovators.
So one of the things I'm focusing on my company to is culture, right? Culture has become a big thing about how do you keep a culture that's constantly thinking about learning, like a growing, right? So how do you, what kind of culture do you set in for your employees so that they have that culture of learning and growing, because you can only grow when you learn.
Absolutely, that's a very good point. So educating and volunteering is something we do. We host agtech sessions here, volunteer work for AgriCenter International. I'm fortunate to be on the board of AgriCenter to educate students, but also that gives us some cross learning, I think, from them and what's going on in the space. Support other initiatives. Tech 901 in the city is doing some very interesting things. We have employees that went through the Tech 901 program. But also the continuous learning, I think, is something that is always ongoing, and I think the open source community allows us to do that, and that skills them up and gets them more equipped for the workforce. But I think you've got to want that. You've got to make sure you've got a culture that the employees are going to work on meaningful projects, and we are working on some of the most meaningful projects that I've ever seen. So even just looking at cotton trading, I mentioned there's maybe a farmer in Tennessee that has 10 bales of cotton that's able to take his cotton and sell it to someone in another country. He never would have been able to do that. And so you're able to give this farmer that has these 10 bales that mean everything to him more money for his product. That is something meaningful. But even more so now, what's going on is in the sustainability initiatives in agriculture, where you're now able to help thousands of farmers convey their story about what the practices they do on their farm that is good for the environment, that promotes agriculture and advances that space. And I think it's very rewarding, and the staff that we have that's making that happen. And it's not just a Memphis project or a U.S. project, it's a global project. It is extremely meaningful, and I think that's what gets them out of the bed each day.
I think you hit the right word, the meaningful, right? Especially with the millennials and centennials, they look for meaningful work.
Absolutely.
And I think what you're doing is very meaningful for a lot of lives around the globe. So I think that's great hearing from you what your leadership style is, where you're trying to take the company, and about create emerging technologies. So is there anything that you want to tell people about, any upcoming event or anything that you guys are going to do here?
There's so many things going on in the city that we're excited about, whether it's the Memphis Chamber, cityCURRENT has some very exciting events going on as well.
Yeah.
And those things we want to plug in and volunteer and be a part of in a community. I mean, we work with companies that compete, but I think there's so much opportunity that us working together provides more value to the industry as a whole.
Yeah. So if people want to learn more about SEAM, where do they need to go?
You can go to www.thescene.com and browse the website. You'll learn more about what we do and some backgrounds of who we are, but also you can see our trading activity as it happens. So all the cotton that trades on the platform is all transparent. You can see what all the prices are.
Okay.
And it's all on the website for public access.
That's great. Thank you again for coming, Mark. And with that, I think we're good.
Thank you.
Thank you again.